Yeah, it's a game based on the Beach Boys mascot that I only know from being in this game.
That's the Beach Boys mascot?
That's what it says on the back of his shirt.
This was like the worst period of the Beach Boys, too.
Mm-hmm.
Is this like post-Kokomo?
Yes, this is like when they were on Baywatch. They had John, what's his name, drumming for them?
John Mayer?
No, I'll look it up.
John Kerry.
Yes, they had John Kerry.
The end.
Sorry, I'm just looking for the... John Stamos.
There you go.
He was like,
Oh, wow.
he actually was an occasional drummer for them because he was friends with Mike Love.
Oh yeah, that came up on Full House a lot. He'd just have the Beach Boys show
And
up.
if you know anything about music, you know that Mike Love is probably the most hated man in music.
I guess I don't know.
Thereabouts.
Yeah. He's a real jerk. He was a big fan of Ronald Reagan.
Cool.
Maybe he's just really into Ronald Reagan's movies. A big Bedtime for Bonzo fan. Hoy hoy, I'm the boy, packing 80 pounds of heavenly joy. This is Insert Credit, the only video game podcast with 250 episodes this week. This is the part of the intro where our editor sounds a buzzer noise. I'm Alex Jaffe, and I ask the questions here.
I'm Frank Cifaldi, and I avoid most of the questions here.
I'm Brandon Sheffield, and I try to answer the questions here, I guess, and then I get annoyed at things, but I try not to. I guess, is that right? Does that make sense?
That's right.
Okay.
Joining us this week, filling in for Tim Rogers, friend of the show and regular old-time pal, Liz Ryerson is here.
Hello, I'm Liz Ryerson, and I'm being paid a guest rate and to laugh and, pretend that I really enjoy the question. So I'm ready to put on my acting face right now.
That's what the people tune in for. We're very excited for it.
I'm not actually being paid for this, by the way. I just want to say that.
Just to make that perfectly clear.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we are at 250 episodes this week. If you had a free day at the world's most complete video arcade, how would you spend 1,000 quarters?
Ooh.
So a quarter a day? I'm sorry.
You have a day without any responsibilities at the world's most complete video arcade.
And you have
1,000 quarters to spend.
Okay.
This is actually similar to going to the California Extreme Arcade Expo, which Frank and I just did.
Yeah, and I've been to several times.
Except it's the world's most complete, which means probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to play all of those specific to arcade games that you can't really play elsewhere. So I'm going to play I'm going to play Too Spicy, the Sega light gun game. I'm going to play Emergency Call Ambulance or whatever it's called. I'm going to play Prop Cycle. Yeah, I'm basically going to play a lot of weird experiment type video games. That's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to have a really good time.
I'm going to go for the big, like experiential ones that take up an entire room.
Oh, yeah.
I cannot name a single one of those. There's an elevator action one, I think. Right? Isn't there an elevator action giant thing where it actually like elevates you?
Not that I'm aware of. There's one where it opens and closes elevator doors in front of you, but I don't know about...
Oh, maybe that's all I'm thinking of. Well, stuff like that. I'm just going to, tour all of the giant things that are clearly here.
There was that, what was it, Daytona or something, where it was, I guess, set up for a trade show at some point, and then some rich guy had it in his house, and then someone bought the house, and it was in there, and it's front part of a car, but it's attached to gyros and stuff, and you're driving Daytona, USA in a real car with gyros moving around and stuff, and it takes up an entire room. I'd play that.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That sounds fun. I think it's the same for me. I mean, I think that's an easy answer to the question because there's so much on MAME and it's so easy to find, or much easier comparatively to find arcade cabinets of like older arcade games. Even stuff like, Marble Madness 2 has been dumped at this point. So I guess if I had like 1,000 quarters, I would have fulfill my like personal childhood goal to beat Revolution X because we had it at the pizza place that I was at growing up. And I've never played that game since then. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's actually entirely likely that I might, on my way to a Too Spicy machine, accidentally see Metal Slug and just play through Metal Slug and like waste part of my day playing something that I've played 50 times and could play at home. But that's kind of, I feel like that's at the very least, it's an authentic arcade experience where you're just walking around. It's like, oh man, it's Kadash. I like Kadash. Maybe I'll just play that. I don't know. Maybe that's not what happens to everybody, but it's like at that, what's it called? Bar 84, Bar 82. I can't remember, in Los Angeles. It's a pretty good barcade, maybe close to the best barcade that I've been to. They cycle new games in and stuff, but for like a straight year, you walk in and turn to the left, and they have Golden Axe: Revenge of Death Adder, and you just never see that game anywhere, and so every time I feel compelled to play it, and I just can't. Even though there's new stuff, it's like, I better play this while I can. So I feel like that would happen to me in this scenario as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I just went to the weekend or so ago to like a retro game con in Long Island Retro Game. And they had a bunch of like stuff set up, like they had a whole arcade section. I mean, they had arcade machines, but they had computers set up. And like, I started playing some of the old computer games. I was playing Phantasmagoria, which is a game that I own but have not played. So I feel like if I went into an environment like that, it might encourage me to like, just when I walk by something, like play something that I've, own or like been intending to play, but just never played because, there's too much stuff out there. So
yeah,
I feel like that is more likely to happen for me than for me to like have like a mental inventory of all the like novelty kind of games. But I mean, that is obviously a good use of the time.
I wish I had more than a day.
Liz, I think it's worth discussing how interesting that show is in the sense that it is a retro video game show inside of an air and space museum.
Yeah.
It was pretty interesting. The theater was like an IMAX theater or something. Like, and it's like
I spoke in that theater,
weirdly slanted.
And it was it was very strange.
It was bizarre. A very cool venue for an event like that, though.
I agree.
I saw, I think, Jeremy Parrish saying this is the only retro game con where you can play Street Fighter in Guile's stage because there's like a Harrier jet next to the arcade machine or something. Pretty good.
Yeah. So playing Phantasmagoria in the midst of the museum was a very nice experience, and it made me actually want to play the game now.
What I do a lot in arcades is just press my face up against the monitors to see what they're actually supposed to look like on their vintage hardware. I don't know. I'm still fascinated by how we can't make them look right yet.
All right, here's our next topic. Let's talk about Gamescom. Is it the new E3? How do we feel about this?
I have no feelings whatsoever about Gamescom. I did not follow it, so yeah.
Gamescom has been around for a while. It has been Europe's E3 for quite some time, though there are some others that are trying to sneak in there, like Poznan Games Arena and the Reboot Festival, that one's in Croatia, and the Poznan one is in Poland, obviously. But Gamescom has been the big one, and it seems to continue to be it, and there were a bunch of announcements and stuff. And it's interesting in that it hasn't had the issues that E3 has had because it began as a consumer game show. It's almost more like the PAX of Europe than the E3 of Europe, except people, because there isn't a PAX of Europe, it occupies both spaces. But it's always been consumer oriented, so you just got like a huge crush of fans, and there's like a dev aspect too. There's DevCom, which happens. I almost went to that once and then I didn't. But it also takes place in Cologne, which is where they have the worst beer in the world, called Kolsch. You know how a moldy sponge smells? That's how Kolsch tastes. There's probably some people getting mad at me in their ears right now.
That's about how all beer tastes to me.
This is a message for Europeans who want to make fun of Americans regarding beer. Because Europeans like to get into it with Americans about beer, and their go-to is usually to make fun of Budweiser. And so my advice is to avoid that, because that's like a grandpa beer, football beer. It's not like the people that you're going to be talking to about it are not going to be drinking Budweiser, and I don't know, it's like making fun of your own grocery store beer. It's not interesting. But the way that you should make fun of us is by saying that we don't know how to use any ingredient other than hops. I think that is that's the way where you could make fun of us.
They should make fun of Americans for drinking nasty-ass IPAs and stuff like that.
Yeah, so just got to globalize your perspective on making fun of us a little more, and then you can do it effectively. So that's my
Go
advice.
for the second joke.
So I don't, like, Gamescom just seems like another show to me. I don't know, like, they all blur together at this point. I think we don't have the show anymore. I think games just tour like bands at this point through all these dang shows.
Yeah.
The only differentiator is, like, which show do we debut the game at? You know, that seems to really be the only thing setting them apart at this point, at least for me. Or at least as someone who doesn't go to these shows, right? And is just, like, maybe watching stuff as it's streamed. Or, I mean, the Gamescom thing was literally hosted by Jeff Keighley. It's just another thing. It's another one of those.
Yeah.
It's another Jeff Keighley show.
But the actual space is pretty different because it is really huge, and it's like one huge giant hangar. There's separate rooms and stuff, but each room is the size of, like, one of the E3 show floors. It's massive, and you do get a lot more European games there that are just, like, around. It's much more confusing and difficult to navigate despite being one straight row of things because there's just so much, and it's so many people. And I guess I would say it's the show where I've run into the fewest people that I knew, not because they weren't there, but because it was so large that I didn't naturally bump into them.
So I looked at the attendance numbers, and it says 370,000 visitors, and that it's the world's largest gaming event, which I did not know. So.
Yeah, it's big. It's a big boy.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, it's huge, and it's kind of uncomfortable to go to, and it also has this weird looseness feeling to it because you like at E3 and at PAX as well, you're always, like, within one area. It feels like you're in the LA Convention Center, you're in the Seattle Convention Center, it's almost Vegas style. You're inside of E3 and then you're outside of E3 once you leave. But Gamescom being all these connected hangars, the connecting part is really just like you're walking outside. So you actually it feels like you're leaving Gamescom and then going back in. And so it has this weird emptiness to it while also having a full crush of people. It's I guess it's actually more like Tokyo Game Show.
It's like the airport of games conferences.
It's very airporty. It feels like an airport hangar. Maybe it is.
I mean, as far as the streams go, it seems like everything is becoming an undifferentiated mush of Jeff Keighley. So
yeah, even when it's not literally Jeff Keighley, it's Jeff Keighley.
Yeah. Gamescom is just another part of the Keighley-verse at this point.
Yeah. It's not even extended Keighley-verse. It's just regular.
Yeah.
It's yet to be extended.
What's the Snyder Cut of Gamescom?
Whoa.
Oh boy.
Wait, the Snyder Cut of game conferences? I don't know. Jaffe, is that your next question? Should we just go for it?
Yeah, what's the Snyder Cut of games conferences?
Okay.
It would have to be something like, imagine, E3 barely exists anymore or doesn't exist anymore. So imagine there was a huge constituency of fans for E3 and, like, lobbying for, like, this is what it should be. So what would that be?
Wait, okay, I have a thought, actually.
Gamescom, I think.
It's probably Gamescom. No, I have a thought, which is, you all may recall there was that 1 year of E3 where it took place in Santa Monica. It was very strange. Everything was really super spread out, and the game journalists who had to cover games had to, like, take taxis between venues to get everywhere. And it was pretty ridiculous. But there were a few people, like me, who were particular fans of this event because I was able to just find out where all the developers were. Since all the journalists couldn't figure out what to do, they were pretty much free, and I could just find a developer and interview them and get a good soundbite and then a longer interview for later. And it was great, and I got a lot of reporting, and all the websites were just reporting on our reporting because we were getting all kinds of stuff. So if there were more people like me, they could request that E3 come back but be like that. And I think that works because that E3 is something that most people didn't experience, but some people could have heard about. and then it went back to normal. And so people could call for that to come back.
That's a big element of it. Sure.
I don't know if it's a direct analog, but it's the best.
Okay, is it fitting? What Zack Snyder's Justice League is, right? Well, which is
that I don't know anything about.
It's as the creator intended or whatever, and it's it's over bloated. It's just ridiculous.
So you have Chris Crawford come back to GDC and give a giant speech about slaying the dragon.
I mean, it's like when they let John Kay do Ren and Stimpy by himself. It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
It's just like, this is why. So it's not egregious like that stuff was, but it's very much like he made like a 4-hour movie that's like square.
So maybe Chris Crawford comes back to GDC. It goes to San Jose because everyone complains about San Francisco. There's too many homeless people, et cetera, et cetera.
Chris Crawford is the keynote at the new GDC.
Mm-hmm. He's like, I'm still working on my algorithm.
And it's like very spread out, and there's like nothing there. It's just a car park kind of area, and it's weirdly has some elements of E3 combined into it. Like there's a consumer showcase or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can bloat it out, no problem.
So I did a search for the longest con in video game history.
Star Citizen, right?
No, I got a bunch of results about Todd Rogers, who faked a bunch of video game scores.
Yeah.
Nice.
Not the same thing.
No.
You could have that guy be a keynote speaker as well.
Yeah, why not?
Why? Who is the director for which the Todd Rogers keynote is the director's cut? Walter Day.
Walter Day, yeah, that's right.
Just bring back all the old names that were even tangentially involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's only old people. It's just getting worse.
That's it. Yeah.
We have Richard Garriott come back and show you his sword collection.
Will Wright is here to sell you crypto.
Oh boy. Yeah, we don't show anything from after 1995 because nobody knows what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, those after that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Could be like E3 95. It's just literally those games, right?
That would be cool.
We could have John Romero come back with some S&M get up so that he can make you his sub as they might say.
He can be dressed like that one Seinfeld cover. Have you ever seen the Seinfeld cover?
I know the one. Yes,
dressed up in S&M gear. I think it's like Variety magazine or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it would be fun to do like a Renaissance fair, except it's E3 1995 and everyone has to come in character.
Everyone's got a utilikilt.
Yeah.
You have John Carmack come in and give a keynote about his tweet where he says, I like carrying around a knife because it reminds me that I'm a tool user. That's one of my all-time favorite jokes.
That's why Twitter exists.
Wow.
That's a good one.
It could also just be like too big and focused on things that people don't care about. Like that, I have watched the Snyder Cut. I haven't seen the original, but I've watched the Snyder Cut. It was an experience in not caring about anything for 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the equivalent would be. Like, it'd be games that are already out, I think.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, no one's... Like when you go to PAX and there's giant booths for games that you can just play right now.
Yeah, it's like games that are 2 years old.
Yeah.
If it's GDC, it could be only PR people are allowed to speak at the conference, and so it's all just like fluff and puff pieces about the games and no actual dev insights or anything.
I think that's it. And that's time.
Okay.
Here's my next question. So my 65-year-old dad texted me this week to tell me that he found a collection of CDs in my childhood bedroom that he's been listening to in the car on his way to the office. It turns out they're the radio station soundtracks from Grand Theft Auto San Andreas.
It's very good.
What other video game soundtracks should I be sending my dad to listen to on his 12-minute commute?
Okay, so he's enjoying these.
Yeah.
I take it. Okay.
He texted me like, really love Master Sounds.
Yeah, you clearly should be sending him the Evergrace soundtrack.
Yeah.
Sure.
Give him some road rage. I mean, it depends on what you want to do, because I feel like you yourself, Jaffe, would want to give him the Nier soundtracks so that you could have a bonding experience over that and be like, oh,
I don't think he'd like that, though.
But what if you could get him to like it? So which aspects of the GTA soundtrack is he enjoying the most, would you say?
He told me he's really loving the master sounds, which is kind of like the throwback 70s station.
Okay. So what about like the BioShock soundtrack?
That's too far back.
That's not 70s.
I know it's not, but if he wants
but
to
it's
get
old.
some vintage sounds, he might like the 20s to 30s stuff that's in there. I don't know.
Yeah, sure. That gets Fallout in there.
What is a soundtrack that has like a sort of 70s soul theme to it? I'm having a hard time coming up with something.
I assume that Death Proof game does, because it's got the visual vibe.
Deathloop?
Deathloop, that's the one.
Yeah.
Death Proof is that movie.
Is a movie. Maybe the GTA Vice City.
Yeah, that's the natural follow-up, sure.
Yeah, that's really the only thing. I mean, like during the PS2-ish era, there were a lot of licensed game soundtracks, but I'm trying to think of, like the main ones I think of are like Tony Hawk types, like Warp Tour type stuff.
I think it would be fun to give him Tony Hawk and see what happens, though. He might start like skanking in the home.
I feel like he got enough of that carpooling when we were in middle school. We had a few ska fans in our group.
I think it could bring him back. He might love that.
Yeah,
coming back
sure.
to it. Like my mom, this isn't listening to the music, but a couple of times ago when she was visiting, I was wearing like a pink shirt with some stripy lines on it, and she didn't like it. She was like, I don't like that shirt. And I went and changed it to one of my like death metal shirts where someone's tearing their face off, and I was like, is this better? And she's like, yes, because that was what she was used to me wearing when I was in high school.
Comparatively.
And so your dad might get that feeling of like, oh, I remember back when you remember when I drove you to school and I embarrassed you with this anecdote? He'd probably love it.
Yeah. You know what? He might. I feel like the Katamari soundtrack is universal.
Sure.
Yeah, if it's not too quirky for him, but
Yeah.
I mean, there is the Shubiyake, like the Burt Bacharach 70s Cornelius Stereolab kind of stuff, which is like, well, I guess Burt Bacharach's more like 60s-ish, but yeah.
Speaking of 60s, I wonder about Space Channel 5, how he'd feel about that.
Ooh, Space Channel 5 would be a good one, yeah. That might work. To fill in my dad's profile, he went to 64 live Grateful Dead shows.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, okay. Like Katamari wouldn't be a bad choice then.
Right.
I know there's some jam band soundtracks. Like, is there a soundtrack to Ape Out?
It's like drums, right?
It's drums with some other things in there, but it's very jammy. I think there is a soundtrack to that. I don't know.
I mean, the Earthbound soundtrack is pretty like psychedelic. Honestly.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I think that would be a hit.
Yeah, but is he going to be cool with, digitally generated sounds as opposed to instruments?
That is a good question, yeah.
There are like a lot of references to old pop songs in it, though.
True. Earlier, Brandon said Tony Hawk and See What Happens, and I love that as a title for something.
It might be the title of this episode.
Tony Hawk and See What Happens.
Yeah.
Tony Hawk it and see what happens.
Has anyone ever done a podcast episode where they interviewed him and called it Tony Talk with Tony Hawk? Because they should have.
I mean, probably.
Probably.
That's what I want to do.
I don't know if he does podcast appearances. I know he does NFTs now.
We should get him on here, but actually now you said NFTs, now I don't want him on here.
Yeah.
Dadgummit, why they gotta do that stuff? Just get that all out of here forever. How about that?
That's a good policy, and I stand behind it. Here's our next topic. What better way to celebrate 250 episodes than with an improv zone?
Oh, no.
Oh, boy.
You're in for it now. Kirby and Super Smash Bros. Director Masahiro Sakurai has started his own YouTube channel about the history of video games and game design theory.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of like this podcast, but made better. This could be the start of a trend in the industry. I'm going to call out the name of a game director, and one of you will have to act out a sample of what their YouTube channel would be like.
Okay.
Let's start with Ed Boon.
What does he say in that pinball game? Get yourself a hot dog, right? Like he's Rudy the Dummy in Funhouse, right? So Yeah, so I don't know if this is what I sound like, but this is what I sound like now. I'm Ed Boone, and back then the coin-op division of Midway, we didn't just make video, we did pinball, we did pins as well, and I did some design, but I think what most people might remember me for is being Rudy the Dummy in the Funhouse game, and really that was probably my proudest moment in my career. Kids talk about Mortal Kombat and such, but being able to voice a dummy while being able to move my lips, no one knew because it was a recording, so people thought that I was a ventriloquist, and it turned out really well. And I would say that's what inspired Mortal Kombat in the end.
Shinji Mikami.
Smashing that leg button. Shinji Mikami? Is that who's next?
That's right.
Yeah.
Back when I was making my seminal work, Goof Troop, I knew that it had the potential to become something even greater. That's why I created the Resident Evil series. But isn't it best to go back to one's roots at times? That's why I'm announcing a new Goof Troop in Unreal Engine 5 here on my channel, exclusive to you. With
the Goof Troop Within.
Yeah, the Goof Troop Within. It's a survival horror Disney licensed Goofy video game, which brings back all your favorites, Mr. Goof X, for example, and that's what I'm doing. The end.
Ron Gilbert.
Hey guys, it's Ron Gilbert here. I want to tell you a little bit about when we made Maniac Mansion back in the 1980s. It was a long time ago. A lot of people say that you can microwave the hamster in that game. That's not actually true. What is true, when we were working on it back at Skywalker Ranch, George Lucas came in and he was like, "Hey guys, I think you're doing a great job." And we were like, "Thanks, George." And that was a really important moment in my career, I know, that I'll never forget.
Tetsuya Nomura.
I love belts. I love zippers. I love belts with zippers on them. I love zippers with belts on them. I wish it was 2003, and here is my top 20 list of things that I like from 2003. I like pointy, spiky hairdos. I like big shoes. I like the colors black and yellow, maybe white, but black and yellow. Those are my top ones. I like lore. That's not from 2003, but I'm just giving you a little extra insight into me. This is a little tip for you game developers, aspiring game developers. The more cutscenes you can put into a video game before the video game starts, before you allow the player to do anything, the better that game will be received. This is just a fact that I've discovered throughout my years developing video games. I like zippers. Did I mention that? I like zippers.
Jeff Minter.
Oh.
Jeff Minter. Llama sounds for 2 hours straight.
When I'm hanging out with my llamas in New Zealand,
He lives in Wales.
I had an experience where I can't do a New Zealand accent, sorry.
He's Welsh.
Oh, he's Welsh? Okay, I'm sorry. I confused him with Sam Neill, who also has a lot of goats and stuff. When I'm hanging out with my animals, I started to see visions of llamas dancing in the air through many colors, and I saw many math equations, and I thought, wow, this would be a really killer idea for a game. So I went over to my computer system, which is plugged into cybernetically into a bale of hay, and I said, it is time to unleash the demons. And it was very colorful, and several people experienced severe nausea while playing it, which means to me it was a very successful experience.
I gotta add one for him.
Yeah.
So here's the title of my video. It's called "How to Grow Psychotropic Amanita Mushrooms in Llama Fur." There's a lot of steps involved. You need a lot of llamas, you need a lot of fur, you need a damp area like we have here in Wales. One of the keys, you may not know this, is that you have to play 90s style techno music to the mushrooms 24 hours a day while playing a light visualizer on top of them, and then they will give you the optimal psychotropic experience. Here's my 10-part video. Okay.
Yeah, the whole thing was inspired by a really killer square pusher track.
The Oliver twins.
We love eggs. Here's 12 ways you can prepare eggs.
I've been saving a joke response for one of these, which is just to go off in a right-wing way about woke culture. But so far, I haven't wanted to do that to any of these people. So just know that the Snyder cut of this episode.
That's right.
Had me screaming about woke culture and how we should ban all books.
Frank, you might want to hold on to that because our next one is Tomonobu Itagaki.
Yeah.
Wokeness has got to stop.
They're telling me I can't have jiggly boobs in my game.
No one should have pronouns. No one.
Jiggly
no
boobs
pronouns.
do not have pronouns. Boobs do not have pronouns.
Books should not exist. Kids should not have access to books anymore. We should get rid of the books.
This is what he sounds like.
Yeah. I think Itagaki's all right, probably.
Reggie Fils-Aimé.
Back when I was working at Pizza Hut, we had a saying.
I'm about kicking ass and taking names and selling you NFTs.
We were all about delivering pizza back in the day. I was like, you guys better get the pizza out. You better get it out nice, good product. You better get it out fast. You better get it out hot. Customers don't like it when it's cold. So I took the same approach to when I went to Nintendo, and especially GameStop, which was my finest work, being on the GameStop board of investors.
When I created the Bigfoot monster pizza, what I did was that people wanted things bigger and bolder and
because
better.
I'm big. You may not know this about me. I'm a pretty big
Which
guy.
is what I've done at GameStop.
That's why we made the Wii.
David Cage.
Oh, God.
I love the video game. These, how you say, the expression of the inner core of the self, myself, not yourself. Because the video game is the modern media expression, and I hate the wokeness, and I do not think the women should have the rights. And
in this game, I examine a robot woman taking a shower from 5 different angles as she short circuits, and then we discover her dark past as a robot sex worker on the streets of Detroit, filled with many objectionable racial tropes. And then the world ends because it turns out that the main character, who was a male, was blamed for doing all the things that he did not do, and it was not his fault. It was actually the universe's fault.
The enemy was the wokeness.
Hey.
And I brought Lars von Trier in with me as a consultant.
Wow, it's really, he should have a show. He's very honest.
Yeah. And finally, Swery.
Oh, man.
Swery.
He'd be talking about, I think he'd be reviewing beer or something.
He would be reviewing whiskey, I think. He'd
Okay.
be like, this is my favorite bar. Yeah, okay, so welcome everyone to my favorite White Owls bar, where I will be reviewing this whiskey today. It's got a very nice mouth feel. You'll see that I have the delightful round ice cube in here, which fills the glass. Really helps cool everything down without watering it down too much. But if you like your whiskey with a little, thinned out a little bit so that you can spend a longer time savoring it, you just swirl it around a little more.
Swirling this glass around reminds me of the movie Twister. Have you ever seen the movie Twister?
Yeah, there you go.
It was a really great movie. Honestly, very underrated. There were a lot of very good performances in it. Anyway, it reminds me of the flavor of this whiskey.
You can taste the oak notes.
We all know that when you see donkey milk on a menu, that it's there as a joke and you're not supposed to order it. But I know this one weirdo.
Okay, I just wanted to add a little,
Yeah.
I don't think I shared my story of talking to Ed Boon at the DICE Summit, did I?
If you haven't, this is a great occasion to reshare it. It is episode 250.
And
Okay.
I will share my story right after, which I think I have shared before, but I'll do it again.
So at DICE, which is in Las Vegas, Frank, you were there. I bought an R-Zone,
Mm-hmm.
which is the Tiger handheld headset. So it like takes the Tiger LCD games and you can slot them in to a headset where it's got like one red like transparent eyepiece, and it projects the LCD game onto the transparent eyepiece, and you wear it, and you look like the guy from the Terminator, John. Who's the dad, Connors? Is that John?
John Carmack, yeah.
John Carmack.
He carries around a knife because he's a tool user.
Yeah, but anyway, you look like the Terminator guy with a one eyepiece up. Anyway, I decided to wear it to the DICE Awards after party, and it really put a lot of people off. To be honest, which was very funny. But I forgot I was wearing it, and then I went up to talk to Ed Boon. He and I were on the same like advisory panel, so I was talking to him about that stuff, and he kept just looking at me and going, and he really didn't want to talk to me. And then his like producer just slid himself physically between Ed Boon and me and started talking to me instead, so that Ed Boon could leave. And I realized later that he was probably weirded out by my headset, because multiple people later thought that it was a recording device, even though it's very clearly a 1990s piece of terrible technology. That was my little Ed Boon story. I was trying to talk to him like a regular human being, and he thought I was a big weirdo and was forced to be rescued by his producer.
Well, my very quick disappointing Ed Boon story is that I was interviewing him for something, I don't remember. Like he was, on a PR tour for whatever he had going at the time. And similarly to my jokey podcast thing, I was very tickled by the fact that he was the voice of Rudy the Dummy in my favorite pinball machine, Funhouse. Yeah. My first question to him was, can you talk to me in the voice of Rudy the Dummy?
Oh, no.
And he was just like, I don't remember how to do it. And so I like tried to like mimic his voice.
Oh no!
Back at him.
Oh no!
And then he's like, oh, and then he did it back to me, but it was like worse than my impression of him. Even. So he has completely lost that voice, and it's very disappointing.
That's too bad.
I like that you both have very embarrassing stories.
I'm not embarrassed. I am not embarrassed by that.
Okay.
That guy should be pleased that someone recognizes that he's Rudy the Dummy. He did a fantastic performance in that.
Fair enough. I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Very healthy self-image,
The
Frank.
actual Rudy the Dummy is, get yourself a hot dog, right? And I tried to do it at him, and he's like, oh yeah, I don't remember the lines. And he's like, step away from the clock. It's like, that's not what he sounds. It doesn't sound like that. It's really bad. Now I'm doing an impression of his bad impression of my impression of him.
I love it.
Get yourself a hot dog, Mr. J.
What's the inception of this podcast? It's Frank doing a voice of Ed Boon, doing a voice of Frank, doing a voice
of Ed Boon.
Me doing Harley Quinn Ed Boon.
Yeah.
Liz, what's your embarrassing Ed Boon story?
Oh, my embarrassing story has nothing to do with any games person, so maybe I shouldn't tell it.
Okay.
What's your most embarrassing Ed Boon memory?
Yeah.
I've never met Ed Boon.
Well, you got to work on that.
It could be like, I used to know the backstories of every Mortal Kombat character.
Since I brought it up, my most embarrassing story, I'll just say this briefly. I saw this band called Caribou in college that used to be known as Manitoba. This guy, he's like a Canadian electronic musician. Mm-hmm. And he used to be known as Manitoba, but then he got sued by this guy from, I can't remember what punk band, whose name was going by the name Dick Manitoba, so he was forced to change his name. So I had this shirt from swim team where our coach, who like for the 1 year that I swam in college, our coach was named Dick Michaels, and he was leaving, so everyone made a shirt that said I Heart Dick on it. So I had a shirt that said I Heart Dick. And so I brought it to the concert because I thought he would think it was funny. And I actually went up to him after the show and I was like, you like my shirt? I Heart Dick? And he's like, yeah. And he looked like extremely upset at me and then walked away. And then I was like, wow, that was really stupid and embarrassing. And I feel stupid for doing that.
Okay.
Well, we know what to make you wear if you ever meet Ed Boon.
Exactly. The I Heart Dick t-shirt.
Please no.
I love Rudy the Dummy.
Well, we'll contemplate that as we take a quick break and return in just a moment.
The first time I met Reggie Fils-Aimé, what you do with that guy is ask why he hasn't localized a game, right? But I didn't ask about the one that you'd think one would ask about. I asked about Oendan. So it was before Elite Beat Agents was the thing. So that is
You're responsible for Elite Beat Agents getting localized.
I am responsible for Elite Beat Agents, yes.
He was like, I was waiting for somebody to ask.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Welcome back to Insert Credit. It's time for us to dive, as we do, into the dirt bag, where one of our lucky and intelligent and good-looking listeners who subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/insertcredit for just $1 a month can get access to a form where they can submit questions, get monthly bonus episodes, and other treats and surprises as we release them. This week's question comes from Mr. Heck, who asks, in Anna Karenina, there's a famous line, all happy families are alike. Each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. Applying this to video games, what do good and or successful games have in common? And what makes bad and or unsuccessful games unique?
I think good and successful games have often the... well, maybe this is not true. Because I was going to say money is a common factor, but there are some games that are good and successful that came out after like a lot of trials, so maybe not.
Well, I think it's...
enough time?
It might be kind of the same thing, but I think it's polish.
Yeah.
Specifically, like however you got there, money or time, right? Or both. I think it's polish is the common denominator when it comes to successful, popular games. I mean, even things that are a little janky that got popular are still like polished janky. I don't know if that actually makes sense, but it does in my head right now.
No, it does. Like if movement feels good, then a lot more can be forgiven if that part is polished.
Yeah.
I guess I would like to dispute the premise of the question. Sorry, Mr. Tolstoy. I know you were a great writer, but I'm not sure if that's exactly true. Or at least there are plenty of bad games that are bad for very similar reasons to each other.
Sure.
Yeah, but there we could at least name a handful of reasons that games are bad, and they're kind of the opposite of polish, which is not enough time, not enough money, not enough people. I've also seen a lot of games that just have zero vision whatsoever.
Yeah.
They're just like, the people making it had no idea why they were doing it. They were just, this was their job. Calls to mind the thing that sticks out for me forever from a Konami GDC talk. They were talking about how much you can monetize a player versus how much fun they have to have. Like how much fun they need to be able to have some fun before you monetize them, or else they'll quit. And the first question after the conference, after the talk was over, was, can you tell me how much fun is required to be put into the game before I can monetize?
Can you give me a precise measure of fun that I'm going to pour into this beaker?
How many fun units
Distilled
must I provide?
Fun essence, fun syrup.
Fun
Can I
crystals.
have the fun crystals to output into the... I hate this shit so much.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
How do you quantify anything? You don't, because I mean, I understand that there's some degree of, but I think that's like a trick that I don't know. People tell themselves that there's some kind of comprehensible, easy. I mean, obviously there are some best practices, but a lot of them are just like common sense or whatever. I don't know. Going back to the question, I think like rush development time and inexperienced developers has a huge, and like lack of support, like a publisher or whoever is giving money is like a huge thing in common for a lot of bad games. But then there are games that are successful that somehow managed to be successful in spite of that. Plus you have games by inexperienced developers that end up being kind of accidentally awesome, like a Death Crimson type thing, which is not like a good game, but it's completely fascinating.
Yeah, it's tough with some of those bad games because Frank and I for quite a while did a bad games club where we would play bad PS2 games and have a good time with it. And there's a game called London Cab, which we may have mentioned on this show before, published by Phoenix or Metro, one of those. The collision is all terrible. The car basically starts out halfway in the ground, stuck in the ground, and everything about it is bad. And it has this terrible music. But the terrible music, I think it was me and Matthew Kumar, or maybe also Frank, the music immediately lent itself to singing London Cab, I'm driving a London cab. And it was just that repeated refrain over and over. That's all the music was. And suddenly the game was fun and there was nothing we could do about it.
Because you're now driving around in your London cab singing about how you're driving around in your London cab.
Right.
How can you have a bad time doing that? It's impossible.
Have you ever heard the theme to this game called Smashing Drive?
Oh, yeah.
Or I think it was an arcade game.
Yeah.
Oh,
Dreamcast or GameCube.
I'm going there right now. Or something like that.
Yeah, great theme.
My favorite memory from our bad game night, I think, was Billy Hatcher on the PS2, which eventually came out on the Wii. I was the first one to play it. And, it's a racing game where you're rip off Harry Potter. And the first thing I did was just turn around like 180 degrees in the race and then clip right through a wall that was behind me and go under the environment. It's just the first thing I did in that game.
It wasn't Billy Hatcher, because that's the egg rolling game.
No, not Billy Hatcher, sorry.
Billy Hatcher's a platform.
Billy the Wizard.
Billy the Wizard.
Okay.
That's
Formerly Barry Hatter. That was the original title.
Barry Hatter.
They had announced it under the title Barry Hatter. So of course, Brandon
Harry
and I.
Batter.
Yeah, of course, Brandon and I were very excited about Barry Hatter.
100%.
Would you play a baseball game called Harry
Batter?
Harry Batter.
Barry Hitter.
Yeah, that's Barry Bonds right there.
Yeah,
Well, I think to summarize this question, I think the biggest thing is like both bad games and good games have in common is like either like consistent investment and support from publishers or whoever, like experienced devs working within something that they know what they're doing, and or like the opposite, lack of. So I feel like that's the one big indicator, but it isn't even always true sometimes. So I don't know.
Well, it's like, lack of vision or lack of resources are how a game is bad, and I think the opposite is true of good games. But bad games can be more interesting and varied in ways that good games that are successful tend to not be. I think that's right. Kind of agree with the sentiment. Usually when bad games are interesting, it's because they got something weird wrong. But it's kind of like when a little kid just says some nonsense, but it sounds really interesting. It's like, oh, your brain's a little broken because you're not developed yet, but you just came up with a phrase no one's come up with before.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think maybe what you mean in terms of like when something is successful, almost that success kind of like masks all the things that went into making it, to where you don't really observe, like you're not necessarily observing how weird something actually is, or how strange, the uniqueness about it, because it is successful. It's become part of the establishment versus like something that is unsuccessful, that is, you see the processes behind like making the thing and sort of what went wrong, and you get to like reverse engineer that. Whereas like something that's successful, it's like much harder to do that. So it has become so much absorbed into the consciousness, or become so established.
It was weird when we were playing those old bad games and we got to that Lemony Snicket Unfortunate Events game.
I was waiting for this.
Yeah, and
every time this comes up, we get back to Lemony Snicket.
Gotta get back there because it was too good. We played it and it was like, wow, they really got the movement right on this, and these puzzles aren't bad. What's going on with this? Very strange. Very mysterious.
Let's play Universal Studios Theme Park Adventure again.
Yeah.
It's no Neopets The Darkest Fairy, a game that I bought in a bargain bin for $1. Yeah. It's like a ripoff of
It's
Zelda.
no Alias. That was a good one.
This is a pretty good transition into my next question. The number 250 is slang in Chinese for an idiot. What's the stupidest thing you've ever seen in a video game?
There's a lot of stupid things.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's hard to think of.
I mean, I'm just so we're not thinking forever and just so someone's talking. I recently reread that classic Old Man Murray article about the death of adventure games, with the puzzle in Gabriel Knight 3. Do you all know what I'm talking about?
Yes, yeah.
I don't.
I don't know if I can remember the whole thing, but it's
that's the mustache one, right?
Yes. So you have to impersonate a person in order to get past a guard or whatever. That person exists, and you could do something really stupid to get his ID, right? So you get his ID, but that doesn't work because you don't look like him. The solution to the puzzle is that you have to somehow think of this. I don't know how one would think of this. You have to find a Sharpie and draw a mustache on his ID and then make a fake mustache for yourself. and wear it. But to make the fake mustache for yourself, you have to find this hole that this cat keeps running through and like put tape on the hole and like honey or something so that when the
cat hair?
Yes, so that when the cat runs through, it magically absorbs a mustache amount of hair that you put on your face.
The world of adventure games is rough.
Okay, so there's a game that I found out about this game from this channel called Ross's Game Dungeon. He covered this game called Armed and Delirious, which is also called Granny X or Dementia, and you play as this like it is one of the most bizarre games that
Those
I've ever
are
seen.
three very different titles.
Yeah, and you play as like a grandma, and she just like it's hard to even explain this game. I really can't explain it. You have to look up footage of it, and I've never played this game, so but just from this video, there's one puzzle. I mean, there are a lot of puzzles that are kind of like the Gabriel Knight one, but there's one where I think you have to like figure out how to match like a color. There's like a color wheel with like a bunch of different sections of the color wheel, and there is apparently literally, and you have to solve it, and there's apparently literally no hints on how to solve it, so it's just pure trial and error, so it could take you up to 10 or 20 minutes.
Wow.
And even according to the like official guide, there's no actual solution to it. It's just there in the game. Very insane thing to put into a game, but that tells you what this game is.
I mean, this isn't actually that stupid, but something that for some reason that's reminding me of that makes me mad is that I think it's Alex Kidd, the original, where to defeat the boss at the end of the stage, you play Rochambeau. And I don't think that randomly winning or losing is a very good game mechanic.
Yeah, that's infuriating.
No.
Yeah.
I think that's very stupid.
I don't know if this totally fits, but I think that some of the changes that Working Designs made code-wise and difficulty-wise to the video games that they worked on could be counted in this pretty stupid zone, like where they last-minute tweaked some numbers on Exile Wicked Phenomenon for the TurboGrafx, making it so that you basically have to grind to level 90 or so in the second level in order to proceed. It's like...
That's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad. Yeah, it was rough. They did a lot of that.
I wouldn't call that stupid as much as I would call it cruel.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't do it on purpose, so that's why it's stupid.
Okay.
Like
Oh.
they changed it, but they didn't intend for it to happen like that.
Okay, then it's stupid.
I would say, like, with the Armed and Delirious example, apparently someone from PC Gamer said it looks and plays like it was designed by a malicious Marcel Duchamp. So that gives you a good idea. But that also makes me think it's, like, intentional, so to just be as malicious as possible. So, I don't know. My original answer was going to be, like, I don't know what the stupidest thing in a game is, but whatever it is, it came out in the year 2007. Because that was, like, peak stupidity for games, like the late 2000s.
Why can't Sonic hold on to his rings? That's pretty stupid. Just learn to hold on to them. Sometimes you're gonna get hit by things. Just hold on to one, buddy. You could do it. They can do it in Knuckles Chaotix. Why can't Sonic do it elsewhere?
You'll have to ask Sonic.
I will ask Sonic.
Yeah.
So, last week, NASA released a recording of sound waves emanating from a black hole in the Perseus galaxy cluster.
Classic Perseus.
Oh, I bet it just sounds like some farts. That's what
Wow, wow, wow. Does it sound like FM synth? Does it sound like Sega Genesis noises?
A little bit, actually.
It better.
So, I want you all to listen to this if you haven't heard it before,
Okay.
and then tell me how you would implement that sound into a video game.
Put it on the Sega Genesis. I'm hearing it.
This sounds like the background of like a dungeon in Zelda 64, like the Shadow Temple. This could be music for the Shadow Temple.
You know, if this music is not, if this sound is not copywritten, you could totally use it for the driving and shifting noise in Oh Dear.
Yeah?
It totally sounds like a car revving up and then shifting. I kind of actually want to do that now. If that's
I wish I had any control over changing the sound effects when I was originally doing that because of freaking PS Mobile. I'm sure you remember when I was like, is there any way in game to change the volume level? And you were like, no.
No. What are you thinking?
This sounds to me like it would be literally an Earthbound.
Yes,
yeah.
That's exactly what I thought.
Maybe when you're like in that final area walking to the, like as the robot.
Yeah.
Walking. Yeah. Like it sounds like it could be in there, right? Yeah.
The bit that they sampled from a Beatles song.
Oh, was that a Beatles sample?
Yeah, that's the beginning of the bum ba 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 da 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 da. Yeah.
But that's not a Beatles song originally, of course.
No, but then it goes and then it love, love, love. Yeah, it's all you need is love.
France invented the Beatles.
Yeah, they did.
Mm-hmm.
I do want someone to make an FM synth version of this and just play it on a Genesis, and that could be the next like Mario Clouds Only kind of thing, whatever that's called. The next art piece could be interpreting this for the Sega Genesis and just having you plug it in and it plays this with like some Jeff Minter visualizer or something.
Honestly, where it's at, I wouldn't be surprised if this audio is already in some kind of fan mod of Mario 64, like some creepypasta thing.
One of those like backrooms style Princess Peach castle mods.
Yeah, there's B31333 or whatever it's called. I can't remember what it's called, but that's like that. But there is a bunch of like creepypasta Mario stuff at this point.
Wait, I have a better Mario drop-in, which is the title screen to Super Mario All-Stars when the lights are out and they're like talking to each other. It's just this.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Yes.
That's pretty good, yeah.
And then the lights come on and like the nice music plays and then the lights go off again. And then it's this sound.
Yeah, that's perfect.
You know, it also actually does, speaking of Knuckles Chaotix, it actually kind of does sound like the intro roll that happens at the start of Knuckles Chaotix.
Yeah, you could do like a Boards of Canada and have a bunch of backwards voices too, saying things like Mario is in hell.
I think we've solved it. All right, here's my next question. As we look ahead to our next 250 episodes, what kind of games and areas of game culture do we not talk about enough on Insert Credit? Basically, tell me what directions I should aim my next 2,500 questions.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, those are two separate questions to me. Because the things you don't ask about, I don't really want to talk about. But, like, you know, let's talk about the casual games industry that we have no idea about. That's part of video games. Mm-hmm. Or, I don't know. I've never played Fortnite. You know, I don't keep up on that stuff like I used to. But I should probably focus on the second half, I guess, of this question, which is what do we want to talk about?
Yeah, I assume there are areas of your expertise that I'm not engaging on this show.
All right, let me think about that.
Something interesting to talk about might be premium mobile games. I think that they're basically gone, but the remnants of that is interesting to talk about, and the way that sort of slots in with Apple Arcade and stuff. I think that's there's some intriguing things to speak about in the mobile space that we could talk about a little bit more.
You mean I can't change collective consciousness with my iPhone game about flinging some sausages in 2022?
Maybe you can. You could try.
Okay.
You could try.
Okay. I'm not going to tell you what you can't do.
I think that when Tim's back, we could talk more about free-to-play games and mechanics.
I would like that.
I secretly, quietly have played a bunch of those for very long periods of time. If you slapped Clash Royale down in front of me, I could still win a battle years later if I wanted to.
Oh yeah, for me, I mean, like, I'm obviously only a guest, but and part of this is just contingent on anyone's interest in it, but you know, I do follow like a lot of experimental fringe like art game stuff just by virtue of jurying festivals and stuff, and a lot of that stuff doesn't have a big audience at all. So I mean, it's something I certainly like, you know, to get more exposure or something. I don't know if there's like a huge crowd clamoring for it, but I mean, it's the same way with which is probably more popular, is like, I followed Doom modding for years, and like, or Quake modding or things like that. Those are some pretty interesting scenes. Of course, there's plenty, like, there are people covering that stuff, so it's not like you necessarily come here for that. But yeah, I guess I would say like modding scenes and stuff that is on the fringes, like the haunted PS1 type stuff, like the
something where I can't talk about Genesis games is what I think is important.
Like that's really good stuff, and I don't know, it's similar to where my brain was going, which is that I think I'd like to be challenged a little more to like have to get out of my comfort zone. It's kind of the opposite of what you're asking, but like the stuff Liz is talking about is not something I interact with very often, but maybe much in the same way that we had to just hear this horrible sound and comment on it, maybe there's some sense of like, hey, let me expose you really quick to this thing that probably none of you guys know about, and then let's talk about it. Might be an interesting approach to what we're doing. Another one that came to mind for me was that, I don't know, like, we're pretty smart people, even though,
sure,
we even though blank,
yeah.
I don't know what the blank is.
Despite the evidence.
Yeah. Despite our apparent lack of success, we're very smart people.
And this might be more on us than you, Jaffe, but maybe more kind of serious thinking about how to do things differently in general. Like, how would you actually make a successful mobile game? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just going back to Brandon's question, like actually putting our heads together.
I was going to say something similar-ish, where we could talk about aspects of our jobs more that people might be interested in, like what are important aspects of directing a video game. And it depends on the video game, and we'd have a lot to say about it, but like what's that about? What is production? What does a good producer do? How can you maintain solid art direction across a project, etc.? Those things I think might possibly be interesting to the audience and might be interesting for us to talk about. I don't know if this question is interesting to the audience though, because it's just us being like, what about this?
It's a preview.
I think the most important thing is for this podcast to get more parasocial. I think that is clearly what's going to be the success.
In fact, go to forums.insertcredit.com and tell us what you want us to talk about. And I guess that's what the Dirtbag is already for. So strike that, subscribe to patreon.com/insertcredit, and submit your topics that way.
Nice.
It's time for us to go into our lightning round. This week, I'm going to give you the names of 10 episodes of Insert Credit from before our multi-year hiatus. And you have to guess what we talked about on them. I don't remember what happened either, so points will not be awarded based on accuracy.
Very good.
Your first episode is Shagargamel.
We were talking about shagagamer.com. And
that's right.
was how we chose to pronounce Shagagamer.
Every single episode, my answer is going to be, the one time that Tim asked me if I wanted to be on this podcast in 2015, and then I was like, oh, yeah, sure, and then never responded to him. So
Rude.
I completely forgot about it, but that's every single episode for me.
All right, episode 2, Games to Top.
Games Tops. That was we definitely in that section we're talking about the confusion between GameStop and GameSpot, and how at that point it was like 10 years later I still get them confused, and guess what? It's now 20 years later or whatever, and I still do. I still say sometimes GameStop when I mean GameSpot, and the reverse, because I was about to say it the exact same way.
Well, I was going to say that I don't get them confused anymore because I don't think about either of them anymore.
Yeah. Relics of the past.
Yeah, but what if it came up? What if we were talking about the GameStop stock?
I actually think that because GameStop became its own weird stock thing, that it might have finally cemented it in my brain for me. I think, yeah. But you know what, Jaffe? That's a suggestion for the next 250 episodes. Try to get us to say the wrong one.
Yeah.
I might try that.
I used to get GameStop confused. Sorry, GameSpot. See, I already confused them. GameSpot confused with GameSpy, which doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah.
But GameSpy was like the I really confused those two.
And I got really confused when GameSpy became a middleware provider and not a website anymore. Another thing about GameStupidest was that I believe after that episode, I registered GameStupidest.com on the internet, and I owned it for like 10 years before letting it go.
Good for you. I'm proud of you. Our next episode is Grim Fans Dango.
Very good.
I believe that likely Brandon was talking about his subscription to Fandango.
Yeah.
Because that's a thing that he did a lot.
All the way back then.
Yeah.
But wait, this is actually episode 3? Like, is it just the first 10?
No, these are from the first batch of episodes before the hiatus.
From the first batch, so yeah, Fandango didn't exist in my lexicon at that time.
Okay.
It was probably actually just about Grim Fandango.
Well, okay, say what it was again.
Grim Fans Dango.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, we were talking about Grim Fandango, but that's not a funny answer.
But it does make me think about how sad it is that people were so mean to Ron Gilbert about the new art direction of Monkey Island that he was like, I'm closing down my blog.
The joy of sharing has been taken from me.
Yeah, that's right.
That is what he said, and that will stick with me forever.
It's so sad, and I really don't like the art, but it sucks that people were so vitriolic about it. They felt like they had to harass the guy. Like, I looked at it and I was like, okay, this isn't for me, but that's fine. Like, I don't care that it's not for me. You know,
you just don't buy the game.
Yeah,
The end.
I'm sorry I slandered him by suggesting in this very episode that he tells boring stories that go nowhere.
He's actually very funny.
Yeah.
The joy of sharing is now gone because you did that, Liz.
I'm sorry.
Video games' greatest mystery.
Ooh, I like that. I don't know. I want to know what
I
it
do
is.
not remember this one.
Did we
Clearly,
crack the
it's.
code?
I don't know. It's probably something
Liz seems to
stupid.
remember this. Which
Yeah,
one was
clearly
it?
it's
Was
not.
it, Liz?
I was just gonna say Luigi in Super Mario 64 or something like that, but that's not very funny.
Sure.
People
Sure.
that
think
might
that
be
has
it.
been solved, but it has not.
It
The
hasn't,
existence
no.
of a model proves nothing.
L is real. Whatever else is in the Super Mario 64 hauntology community.
Yeah, that's probably what it was.
We snuck that into the game IDAR, but it says that somewhere.
Nice.
Yeah.
25% hog.
So we weren't going whole hog. We were going a percentage of hog. Is what is
I
happening.
bet
there.
that was
Probably,
the
yeah.
joke. I bet that was actually the joke.
For sure.
Were you all just exhausted and like kind of falling asleep during the episode? So you're like,
Always,
we're just...
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was probably
That's a
about
safe bet.
some game not making it all the way, and they were they didn't go whole hog and then half hog and then 25% hog, and then that's what happened. I guarantee it.
Credence Clearwater Saga.
It's an RPG with songs from CCR.
As it should
Well,
be.
you play as them. You recruit the band.
Oh,
RPG.
nice.
Yeah, it's like Revolution X.
They're from El Cerrito, I think, right?
Yeah,
Something like that.
there's an RPG map, connecting the towns. There's El Cerrito and Albany and Emeryville and Oakland. Yeah.
The second half of the game is preventing the former members of CCR from trying to sue each other.
Oh, that's good.
Well, it's the second act, right?
Yeah,
And
second
then
act.
The third act is like the reunion tour or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, which will never actually happen.
Yeah, just at the Alameda County Fairgrounds. It's just various fairgrounds during boring events. Yeah,
I love this.
They get back together and that's all they can book.
that's right.
Fire, water, and quiet revenge.
Wow.
I don't remember that at all.
I mean, these are a few of my favorite things.
All the classical elements. You have fire, water, and
Yeah.
Quiet revenge.
quiet revenge.
Fire
and those all-
and water and classic revenge.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you
right.
for,
Thank you.
for picking that up on that. Yeah.
That's what we were doing.
No more Cheeros.
No more Cheeros?
Yeah.
Not Chivos.
Okay.
Clearly, No More Heroes was involved. Have I mentioned how often Suda messes with me in person?
No, I suddenly remembered what this episode is about. No More Cheeros was a nickname that probably Tim, honestly,
Yes.
came up with for Lollipop Chainsaw.
Wow.
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's gotta be it.
Yeah,
Episode 9 on this list. Did I say go-go?
No, you didn't.
you didn't. I guess it would be fun if it was about Space Channel 5.
No, it's not a Saints Channel 5. I do remember this one.
No, of course it's not, but it would be fun if it were. No points for accuracy, so I'm just saying what I would like.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
This one was the one where I tried to make you all list all 14 party members from Final Fantasy VI from memory.
Oh.
Yeah.
Go-Go is a character. Yeah,
I don't know
true.
the answer to that because I haven't played that in 20 years at the end.
Well, when I asked it, you probably hadn't played it in 10 years.
Yeah, and I bet I knew like 2 names then. I was probably like Cloud.
I could name probably like half of them.
All right, I want you to name 7 Final Fantasy VI party members right now, Liz.
Okay, Setzer, we got Locke, we got Terra, or Tina, we got, what is blonde? Sales, Realm, we got, we got the brother Edgar and Sabin. I think
You're
that's
at 7. Yeah, that's 7.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is Shadow one? Is that
Shadow is
yeah,
one,
Shadow.
yes.
nice? Got one.
And finally, multivarious ravioli.
Ooh, it's very mathematical.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to eat that.
No. Is that like a description? I'm imagining, because Tim had his whole like sticky friction mode, you know, where he used that phrase a bunch. I imagine multivarious ravioli being a similar thing, like describing how a game feels. Like there's a bunch of different things, but it also has kind of a texture of ravioli or something. Like,
Yeah, I could see it.
imagine.
Actually, this was our fighting game episode that we did with Patrick Miller.
Oh, weird.
Hard to find because the title doesn't describe it, but if you're looking for that fighting game episode, that's the one.
Very good.
Brandon, I think you're our winner this week. Congratulations.
Woo! Spring break.
Haha.
Good job, Brandon.
You have to come up with a question for our 251st episode. I'll tell you all right now, for our 256th episode, we're going to be doing the best arcade games of all time list. Because it's been a while since we did a list
Ooh,
episode.
I look forward to hearing that.
That's going to be fun. So
We'll have
make
to
sure
do
to
some
bring your
research.
favorites and we'll do a draft style pick. Going to be a grand old time.
Yeah, if Revolution X isn't on there, then I'm going to use music as a weapon against you.
Damn. All right. Who's got recommendations?
I have some. Here they are. If you're washing your car, you should wash it from top to bottom. I know that's common knowledge, and everybody knows you're supposed to do it. But sometimes you might be tempted to not do it that way for various reasons. Like, I don't know, your car's parked on the street and you don't want to stay on the street side too long. But if you don't do that, if you start with a lower part and then you wash an upper part, then all the dirty water trickles down and you have to wipe it off again. It's annoying. So I just wash my car. That's one recommendation. Another is a very quick recommendation to watch the movie Prey in Comanche. This was a recommendation from a while ago that I just didn't get to mention. Just because there's a movie that's got a Comanche dub, and that's cool. And you'll never get to see that otherwise. So watch it. And also, who knows, maybe more movies will do it if that's popular. Then the last recommendation is the movie Winter Beast. This is one of the most... It's one of those movies that is someone's first movie and extremely, extremely obviously their first movie. And it's so amateurish and so poorly put together that it winds up being compelling. But it also has stop motion animation from the guy that did all those like claymation MTV logo bumpers back in the old days. They're all gross and weird. And so you get these scenes of like various creatures that were made completely independently from the rest of the movie, killing characters you've never seen before. Like there'll be somebody in a cabin screaming, and then there's this claymation beast that then like reaches into the building and pulls out a claymation character that explodes in red blood, and it just looks so fake, but it's so compelling and weird. And the main character's mustache changes size, shape, and volume like shot to shot. Sometimes it's his actual mustache, which is very small, and sometimes it's like this huge push broom thing. It's hilarious. And there were a couple scenes that were shot on different film stock, or like 6 years prior to the rest of it, and everyone's got different hair, and it's just intercut with the rest the rest of a scene. It's really bad, but in a way that's pretty compelling. And there you can see it on Shudder, and there's also a Blu-ray, which I have not purchased, but I'm a little tempted because I want it. It's one of those movies where it's boring but also compelling, but the main thing is you want to know how did they wind up doing this? What happened? What were the events that led to the creation of this movie called Winter Beast? Also, it has a lot of like bad Native American stereotype stuff and some homophobia and whatever the usual 90s garbage. So just be aware of that before you watch it. But there you go. That's everything I have.
I guess my recommendation is maybe a little too specific, but if you're someone like me who likes to, I call it like channel surf old games, like put in a flashcard and just kind of look for weird stuff. Don't forget to play the stuff that actually was, popular and good that you didn't play already. That's a thing I can easily forget. And I remembered that, I remembered it by surfing on the original Game Boy and playing the Gradius game, which I just somehow never played. And it's like, oh, this is great. And that's all I played for like 3 days. And instead of playing like weird licensed platformers or whatever, just play some good stuff. Sometimes good popular stuff is good and popular on purpose. And if you didn't play something from 30 years ago, it's good and popular. Maybe do that.
Yeah, it's a good one.
But no one wants to play Jackal for any. Jackal is my is my shortcut for like a generically good NES game.
It's pretty good.
I want to play Jackal.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to doing that. Whenever I put ROMs on a cartridge for my Super Nintendo, I'm gonna play popular games as well as the weirdo games. Like the first thing I want to do is like play Hagane or Psychic Dreams or whatever. But I'll also play F-Zero. Yeah,
exactly, right? Like I've never really played F-Zero.
F-Zero is great.
For a couple hours, I'd probably have a great time.
Yeah. Right. I love F-Zero. So my recommendations are, I went to this event in New York City called Electronicon 3, which is actually the Vaporwave Music Festival.
Ooh.
Nice.
It sounds like a fictional event.
Yeah, no, it's very much real.
And in X-Files episode, that's what they go to.
Vaporwave is no longer an online joke. There were like 4,000 people there. But there's this, I mentioned them before, this artist Death's Dynamic Shroud, who I met in person for the first time. But they're releasing a new album in a month called Dark Life. So I recommend that. And then the other thing I recommend is the George A. Romero movie, Season of the Witch. It's also referred to as Hungry Wives. It was like George Romero's attempt at like a feminist movie, but it was like marketed as a softcore movie. It's a little strange, but I think it's like cut down from the original version, but you can find it on like Tubi. Tubi is the greatest streaming site.
Also a great video game protagonist.
It's on Shudder also.
Okay. But yeah, it's a surprisingly good. To be honest, I only watched the movie because Boards of Canada like sampled it for a couple of times. Well, speaking of which, I did a Boards of Canada episode for my podcast Kitchfork, which I started, I think, after the last time I was on here. It's a music podcast. So yeah, it's Kitchfork. It's Kitchfork Pod. There'll be a link, or I'll make them put a link for it. But if you're into like indie music and music of the 2000s in general, like especially we're talking about that stuff, me and my co-host. So yeah.
I've got some recommendations. Here they are. I would like to recommend that if you're listening to this show in some format where you can subscribe to or review podcasts, that you engage with us in that way to help out the algorithm. Even after 250 episodes, we'd sure like to find a bigger audience. You can also go to patreon.com/insertcredit, where you could become a patron to submit your own topics, listen to monthly bonus episodes, and get other exclusive content. You can also join our community at forums.insertcredit.com, or follow us on Twitter at insertcredit, or search for Insert Credit on YouTube. This show is edited by Esper Quinn, with music by Kurt Feldman. I'm Alex Jaffe.
I'm Frank Cifaldi.
I'm Brandon Sheffield.
And I'm Liz Ryerson.
And get yourself a hot dog!
Mr. J.
All right, that was 250. Good job, everybody.
I was thinking about, during the question with the old titles, I find that everything in my life, it's like I remember the first few and then nothing after that. If it's something I've done a lot, it's like the first few articles that I wrote that were published, the first game that I produced, and just, I can very clearly remember Shagagamere, but I don't remember any episode after that for the most part.